Welcome. This is Decluttering 55 Plus with Michelle Passoff. I'm Michelle Passoff. This is the place to come for news you can use to get things done in life without anything in the way on the road ahead. Around here, when we speak about cleaning clutter, we're not only speaking about letting go of too many papers, clothes, and other paraphernalia as a path to be neater and tidier. Sure, cleaning clutter will help you straighten things up. But moreover, we can use cleaning clutter as a little-known and underused management tool to remove anything in the way of moving in the direction of one's achievements. For the 55-plus crowd, we stretch the boundaries of what clutter means even further. Here we talk about the areas of life that can be confronting or confounding as cluttered, if they bewilder us. On this podcast, we aim to help clarify those things so you're not stopped in your tracks and are free to keep going and get things done. We aim to help invigorate your life and create a legacy, not a mess. If you want to move but don't know where, or you're retiring and uncertain about what to do next, you want to get your financial house in order but you feel stuck, need a new exercise and eating regimen but don't have anything in mind for the right way to do it, if your digital devices are out of sync and how to pass on your life story to the next generation is mystifying, you've come to the right place. Each week, we pick a topic and generate a conversation that hopefully will get you thinking, talking, and acting on whatever you're sweeping under the carpet. Action is the only thing in the world of decluttering that makes a difference, and we hope the conversations we engage in here at Decluttering 55 Plus with Michelle Passoff will free you up. Today, we're going to talk trends. Trends in funeral planning, that is. Before you hit the stop and delete button, take a moment to meet Lacey Robinson because she has the most fascinating things to say about your final goodbyes. Lacey is a licensed funeral director and embalmer, and she teaches customer service, hospice relations, and more at the Worsham College of Mortuary Science. In her free time, Lacey enjoys giving luxury tours of the final resting place of Kentucky bourbon legends. So, welcome, Lacey. Thanks for being here. Ordinarily, we don't think of funeral planning as a creative endeavor, but nowadays it is commonly thought to encourage people to think outside the box, so to speak, when it comes to planning your final farewell. What are the top trends in funerals these days, Lacey?
Well, trends is a controversial word in funeral service because trends certainly come and go, but there are, popular choices that are definitely here to stay. And certainly cremation is one of them. Also, families are interested in how they can reduce their carbon footprint. So looking at environmentally friendly options. There's also the company out west. It's called Recompost, and there's another one called Return Home. And both companies offer ways for individuals to participate, I guess that's the right word, in natural organic reduction of human remains. And as you know, I'm a big fan of living funerals, which is pre-memorialization. And, that is something that people are interested in. They're talking about it. If they actually go through with it, that's one thing. But just the fact that they're talking about it is kind of a big deal. So those are sort of the hot topics in funeral service at the moment.
So talking about funerals is even a trend because that was something that, you probably didn't want to do before you pass, but there's advantages to that, I suppose. And talking about it is in and of itself a trend. Is that right?
Talking about it is not something that people do every day, especially with their family members that they're close with. And you may have heard of the phrase death positive. And this has grown tremendously in the last 10 years through engagement like death cafes and Before I Die festivals, and even the term bucket list. That is something that people are talking about. And it's, funeral homes and hospice providers, they're all a part of this conversation in talking about those end of life choices.
What is what are you calling it? A life celebration? Is that when somebody's ill and they know they're going to pass away? What is a life celebration exactly?
A life celebration can be what you want it to be, Michelle. Some people use the term life celebration to have a party before they actually die. Some people use the term life celebration or celebration of life in place of the word funeral or memorial, or perhaps they have a traditional funeral in a church, but they're having a reception afterwards. They may call that reception a life celebration. So the term life celebration can really take on any sort of meaning that goes with the theme and the purpose of your tribute event.
Interesting. I know that a friend of mine recently passed away and they're having, I guess it's called a life celebration. They're not having a funeral. They're having a gathering of friends at the house with food and drink and just remembering in an informal but loving way. So it's not, with a church or a funeral home or a cemetery. That would be a life celebration then.
Yes,
correct?
If they are coming together and celebrating life, whether it's at their home or, somewhere else, whether the body is present or not, it's what they want it to be in honoring that person's life. And it's a great phrase to accurately show to the public, this is the event we're planning and this is the purpose.
Does a life celebration bypass a funeral home or not?
No, there are many funeral homes that absolutely use that term celebration of life, and they will have it on their brochures, their websites, their commercials, because people have gone from this feeling that funerals are sad and they want something different. They want a party. They want a celebration. And that's really where that term came from. So both hospice organizations and funeral homes, they have embraced that phrase celebration of life. And they want the public to know that yes, we're creative. We will get creative with you. And if you have an idea, let's talk about it and let's make that vision come to life.
Sounds better than a dreary, dark, sad occasion. That's for sure. I think I'm going to have a celebration of life. Now there is more and more people are being cremated these days. Is that correct? And they're doing some unusual or things that are kind of outside the box with the remains. Urn is not your only destination if you're cremated. Is that right?
So there are different final resting places. Some are more permanent than others when it comes to cremation. But the best resource to go to learn all things cremation is the Cremation Association of North America, and that's cana.org. And they define cremation as the mechanical, thermal, or other dissolution process that reduces human remains to bone fragments. So there are two types of cremation. The most common is flame-based cremation. That's the one people are most familiar with. And then the second type of cremation is alkaline hydrolysis, and that is available in a few states. You probably are wondering, what's alkaline hydrolysis?
Okay, go ahead. Tell us what that is.
That's the process where they use alkaline chemicals, heat, agitation, and pressure to achieve natural decomposition in 3 to 16 hours.
Wow. I have a friend, there was a hurricane. I live in Florida and there was a hurricane here and we went to her house, to escape, the hurricane going through our front yard. She lived a few hours inland. And during that time, we went through all of her photos and we had a chance to talk about what she was going to do when she dies. And she said she's going to have an urn. It's going to be right on her son's mantle in his living room. I said, come on, Phyllis, you got to think of something more creative than that. And I said, that's just clutter on your mantle if the urn is there. So what are you going to do with your remains? And I had the idea that she should take them and work them into a piece of jewelry because she's a jewelry maker. And that way her kids and her grandkids could have a piece of jewelry with her remains. And I was kind of only kidding, but as it turns out, you can do some unusual things with the cremation remains. Do you have experience with that?
There's all sorts of things that can be done with cremated remains, and keepsake jewelry either can hold a portion of cremated remains. So just as with your friend, other family members can have their own unique piece of keepsake jewelry with those cremated remains, and it also could hold a lock of your friend's hair. How about that? But people feel when they have their jewelry, whether it's a necklace or a ring or something else, that, you know, they feel their loved one is with them every day. And that is the feeling that comes with, you know, choosing to have keepsake jewelry and using someone's cremated remains in that. But it can be very special and very sentimental. It's a very personal choice to have keepsake jewelry. And some pieces are so exquisite and beautiful. And you may be encountering people often wearing it and not even realizing it. But there's a lot of interesting options for cremated remains. Have you heard of the company Eternal Reef, Michelle?
I have not. Do tell.
So Eternal Reefs, they take cremated remains of an individual and they incorporate them into environmentally safe, cement mixture designed to create artificial reef formations. And then they're placed in permitted ocean locations selected by the individual or family member. And they can be personalized, making that reef a true reflection of a person's life. How interesting is that?
Wow. And what about, I saw something on Shark Tank, believe it or not, where they took cremated remains and they made stones that you put in your garden with the remains. I thought that was kind of nice. I thought that was very beautiful.
Yeah, if our listeners who are fans of Shark Tank, they may recall a company called Parting Stone, and they solidify cremated remains, creating a huge collection of unique smooth stones. And there were two sharks that invested in Parting Stones. And of course, they have experienced more growth as a result of that appearance. But that in itself, just the fact that these companies that are in the death care arena are going on Shark Tank, that contributes to the death positive conversation. Right. It's great to see. It's very exciting.
Do you have an experience with somebody doing something that what do they call it when a funeral director heads up a program that when you, at a funeral that you monitored or headed? Do you have an experience of something that you want to share in terms of an unusual choice?
Well, I train funeral homes across the country. I have these conversations with them, and they always want to share what the most unique funeral that they've had in their recent professional history, because it certainly stands out. It's stories that they do want to share, not only with other funeral directors who may be inspired, but with other family members who are wanting to be creative, but they're not quite sure how to have that conversation, but they're curious. And so it's been interesting to hear those conversations over the years. And I've heard of everything from a Christmas themed funeral in the month of July, or, something where they're using, memorial fireworks in memory of that person, or instead of a traditional funeral, they're having a, wine and cheese social with everybody, with perhaps even a live band. But they're thinking very creatively. They're going with themes, which is pretty exciting to see. And if the individual had a favorite sports team, they're going to go all in on that favorite sports team. Or if
everybody comes in orange and blue.
Yes, everyone participates, not just the deceased. Everyone is invited to be a part of that theme, which is awesome participation for everybody involved. And, sometimes they'll have a different venue in mind. It could be at a country club. It could be at a hotel. It could be at a sporting venue for a sports team and a VIP suite, which is super exciting to hear about. Or you may have families who just want to be very creative with the merchandise that they're selecting.
What about donation to medical research? Is that displace the idea of a funeral, or does it include a funeral as part of the process of saying your farewells? Because I like the idea of that.
You do? Okay. A lot of people are very, very curious. There are always numerous questions surrounding this noble act of donating to science. And it is something that a person will need to register in advance with a selected recommendation and, asking questions and understanding what that process not only looks like for the deceased, but what does it look like for friends and family as well, who are going to have this, natural urge to perhaps honor a person's life immediately following the death. So there's a little bit of a different timeline. It's a different process, but it does need to be talked about with the family, and it does need to be taken care of and those decisions made in advance. Those companies or organizations and medical schools, they will have a annual memorial service and invite the family members, and they will honor all of the people who were donors. They will honor all those individuals.
Do most communities have a medical facility that will accept those remains for research, or are the remains shipped elsewhere in order to make that contribution?
You'll want to do your research the best you can. There may be some places that are closer than others, and there may be some organizations that are close, but they're not accepting at this time. So those are some of the questions that, to be prepared to ask, asking the funeral director to maybe point them in the right direction of what is available locally, what is available regionally and in the state, or if they're thinking bigger than that, something that is out of state, which is certainly possible. But they do have parameters. They have guidelines of, who it is they would be accepting and, what that timeline is for them. They may not be accepting when the person's death actually occurs.
So it sounds to me like if you want to get creative with your funeral, then you need to do your arrangements in advance. It's not something once you pass away that somebody's going to start coming up with all these creative ideas. Is that true? So if you want a creative funeral, something non-traditional, think ahead?
Thinking ahead is always good. There is no downside to thinking in advance about end-of-life choices. The thing when it comes to creativity, as you've probably have heard about in the past, people who maybe want to get married in 24 hours or in 2 days, there's always a group of girlfriends who can absolutely pull it together for that bride and make it happen overnight. The same could essentially be done for someone who is deceased. It's going to take teamwork. It's going to take an individual who knows where the resources are online to make that happen and to make phone calls and really work hard to, plan something quickly. But always remember that there's no rush. There's no rush. I come from a family where we wait 1 week to 2 weeks before we honor a family member's life. That's how we do it. And there are invitations involved, particularly on my dad's side. If he doesn't invite you, really doesn't want to see you there. And it's not of any disrespect. It's about keeping it private. Yeah. So families can set up their own timeline to make that happen the way that they see it should happen.
Well, also depending on the religion, because some religions require, like in the Jewish religion, you require, I think, 24 hours, something like that. So you'd have to think about that in advance. Well, This has been a fascinating conversation. It makes me think that I have to go back out there and get my creative juices flowing, that I need not stop where I already did. I did pre-plan, but I think I have to not stop there and keep pressing until you have every T crossed and I dotted. But that's all the news fit to print for today, my friends. So if you think your funeral can't be the best party you've ever planned, think again. These days, it's all the rage to wow folks with a grand exit. So think about planning your funeral, much about you might organize a wedding. Get familiar with all the details so you can go out in style in the way that best expresses who you were. And by all means, rest in peace. But before we go, please go to the website, www.decluttering55plus.com. Click on the Let's Connect button and let us know your comments and questions and experiences so it informs what we do next on this podcast and we can share our wisdoms with others. Also, let us know the topics you would like us to cover. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like us on the podcast platform from which you're listening today. Let's grow this community. So that's all for now, and have a clutter-free day.